I need to tell you a truth about my life that most people misunderstand. When they see me now, they see Alibaba. They see the success, the wealth. They think I must have had a smooth path, a good education, and important connections. But the truth is simple. My life was a decade of being told no. I applied to universities, I applied to jobs, I applied for small projects, and the answer, almost every single time, was a polite but firm no thank you. You know the most famous one, the one that always gets a laugh, KFC. 24 people applied, 23 were hired. I was the one who was rejected. They didn't see potential. They saw a funny-looking man with a poor resume. But let's talk about the biggest rejection, the one that, at the time, felt like a public shaming. I applied to Harvard 10 times. Imagine the arrogance, the persistence, or maybe the stupidity to send an application to the same place that many times, only to be rejected every single time. And I want you to understand this clearly. The failure of the institution to accept me, the closing of those 1,000 doors, was not a humiliation. It was a gift. It was the greatest gift I ever received. Why? Because the biggest lie they sell you in school, the lie your parents unintentionally pass on, is that validation from established, big-name institutions is necessary for your destiny. They teach you that you must follow the path that they have approved. They tell you to stand in the line, and if you stand long enough, the door will open. This is a very comfortable lie. When Harvard closed the door on me for the 10th time, they were not saying, "Jack Ma, you are unworthy." What they were truly doing was shouting, "Get out of our line. Go invent your own system. Go build a world we cannot even imagine." Think about this. If I had been accepted, I would have spent 4 years conforming, learning their rules, absorbing their predictable corporate script. I would have become a good manager, a successful executive, maybe even a rich person in their system, but I would have never become a revolutionary. I would have never built Alibaba, because the kind of thinking required to build something truly new is antithetical to the kind of thinking required to get into Harvard. That initial, intense pain of rejection, that burning feeling in my stomach when I got the letters, that pain is the fire I want you to embrace. It is the first stage of success. It is the fire that burns away your need for approval from other people. You see, when they say no, it cuts the rope of expectation that ties you to their average vision for your life. You are suddenly free. When the system says you don't fit, it means you were made for something that requires you to create your own mold. Never ever forget the feeling of being told no. Hold on to that memory fiercely. It is the purest fuel you will ever find in business. It is the proof that you are operating outside the zone of comfort. This rejection, this fire, it forces you to build the only thing that truly matters, your own invincible self-belief. You need to train yourself to use that resentment, not to complain, but to relentlessly work. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is a necessary stepping stone. It is the lesson you didn't pay for, and the one they handed me on that piece of paper was priceless. I didn't get a degree, I got freedom. The straight road, the easy yes, the prestigious acceptance letter, these are not markers of success. They are markers of comfort. And comfort, I warn you, is the single greatest killer of entrepreneurial spirit and true wealth creation. People think success is finding the path of least resistance. I tell you, success is deliberately choosing the path of maximum resistance, because that is the only place you learn how to fight. If Harvard had accepted me, if I had found an easy, high-paying job right out of school, I would have been on the path of convenience. And that path, while seemingly smooth and predictable, is profoundly dangerous. Why is convenience dangerous? Because success built on convenience is fragile. It is like a house built on sand. It holds up fine when the weather is calm, but the first real storm, the first financial crisis, the first market shift, the first powerful competitor, and your comfortable success shatters. You haven't developed the necessary muscles to survive because you never had to invent a solution. You never had to dig the foundation yourself. You simply followed the instructions. Following instructions is how you become a great employee. It is not how you become a great founder. My rejection was a forced education in survival. It forced me to abandon the corporate script and to invent my own game. When you are outside the system, when you are rejected by the institutions, you have no safety net. You cannot call the alumni association. You cannot use the famous university name to open doors. You have only your wits and your ability to persevere. That pressure, that total lack of a plan B, is where real genius is born. It forces you to look at the world differently. It compels you to find solutions where others see only problems. It makes you resourceful and ultimately untouchable by external events. Think about the mental difference. The person who gets the easy yes spends their whole life worried about protecting that status. They worry about their resume, their title, their image. The person who gets the hard no 10 times knows that status is an illusion. Their success is rooted not in what someone gave them, but in what they took from the world through relentless effort. This internal confidence, forged in the fire of rejection, is the ultimate advantage. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, yes, but often, rejection is the only thing that forces you onto that bridge in the first place. Your greatest enemy is not failure itself. Failure is a lesson. Your greatest enemy is the comfortable, soft, and easy road that leads inevitably to an average life. That road is crowded with people who chose security over opportunity. They chose to be managed rather than to manage their own destiny. If you are comfortable right now, you are probably not growing. If you are not growing, you are slowly dying. The rejection, the pain, the struggle, that is the vibration of life, the sound of growth. So when you face a setback, don't mourn the comfort you lost. Celebrate the inconvenience that has been forced upon you. It is the universe's way of telling you that you were thinking too small, that your plan was too safe, and that the rewards you were aiming for were simply not worthy of your potential. You were rescued from mediocrity by a rejection letter. Use that freedom. Go invent your own system, write your own rules, and build your own path to wealth, a path so unique and so tough that no one who chose convenience will ever be able to follow. The world only remembers doers, not talkers, and inconvenience is what forces you to become a relentless doer. We live in a world obsessed with safety. Everyone wants a warning label, a clear path, and guaranteed results. But I will tell you a simple truth. You cannot become mentally tough by reading books or attending seminars. Toughness is not an academic exercise. You become truly tough by getting hurt repeatedly, by falling down, and by making the conscious, immediate choice to stand up faster each time. Mental toughness is not about avoiding pain. It is about embracing it as part of the process. Every single rejection in my life, from the KFC manager who looked right through me, to the teaching jobs I didn't get, to the 30 times I pitched to venture capitalists and was laughed out of the room, was not a setback. Each one was a scar. These scars are not weaknesses, they are proof. They are proof of survival, proof of persistence, and proof that your mind has been calloused against the sting of external judgment. When someone attacks you now, their words bounce off the hardened skin that rejection has created. The person who fears rejection will never, ever take the risks required to build an empire. They will stay small, safe, and silent, constantly trying to optimize their chances for a yes. But true wealth is built on massive calculated risks, and massive risks always come with a massive probability of failure. If your ego is too fragile to handle failure, you are automatically disqualified from the highest levels of achievement. You must train yourself, literally train your mind, to seek out the no. Why seek the no? Because a no is clarity. It confirms you are pushing the boundary. If everything you are doing is being immediately accepted, you are probably not innovating. You are probably just conforming to what already exists. Innovation lives in the gap between what people accept now and what they will need later. That gap is always filled with initial skepticism and rejection. I remember when we were trying to start Alibaba, the prevailing wisdom in China and the US was that e-commerce would never work here. They laughed at the name, they laughed at the concept, but those laughs, those rejections, were a signal to me that we were doing something different. If everyone immediately loved your idea, someone else would have done it already. This process of earning scars is how you build true resilience. Resilience is not bouncing back. It is having so many layers of hardened experience that you don't even need to bounce back. The impact barely registers. This is why I consider the Harvard rejections so valuable. They taught me early that I didn't need their permission to define my own trajectory. That self-reliance, that confidence that comes only from knowing you can survive the worst they can throw at you is the real capital. It is the intangible asset that no bank can seize and no competitor can copy. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but mental toughness is when your preparation can survive the complete annihilation of your opportunity. We are not aiming for smooth sailing. We are aiming to become the kind of ship that can navigate any hurricane. And the only way to build that kind of ship is through the repeated violence of rejection. When the rejections came, from KFC, from Harvard, from my first 20 business partners, the initial feeling was devastating. It was anger, despair, maybe a little self-pity. This is natural. But I learned very quickly that these raw, weak emotions were my greatest liabilities. They were not fuel, they were quicksand. If I stayed in that emotional hole, I would never climb out. The crucial turning point in building Alibaba and in building myself was realizing that emotional control is not about hiding your feelings. It is about denying them the power to control your strategy. The truly powerful person is not the one who never gets angry, but the one who can take that heat and convert it instantly into cold, logical, unemotional planning. Your anger doesn't help you revise your business model. Your self-pity doesn't help you pitch the next investor. Those feelings are a distraction from the work that needs to be done. They are noise. You have to learn to shut off the noise. The moment you feel the sting of rejection, you must immediately transition from the emotional response, I am a failure, to the strategic response, what is the data here and what is my next action? For years, I made the mistake of letting my emotions dictate my actions. I would lash out, I would sulk, I would waste days worrying about why I wasn't accepted. This is the behavior of the weak, and the market ruthlessly punishes weakness. The moment you show a competitor that your self-worth is tied to the outcome of this specific deal, they own you. You become predictable, manipulable. The truly powerful person has learned to separate their personal identity and self-worth from external outcomes. I am not Jack Ma, the rejected teacher, or Jack Ma, the failed entrepreneur. I am simply Jack Ma, committed to a mission. Whether they say yes or no, the mission remains the same. This kind of mental firewall is built through conscious daily effort. It is stoicism applied to the marketplace. It is the realization that your feelings are nothing more than internal chemical reactions, and you have the power to starve the negative ones. You must ruthlessly discipline your emotional reaction to everything. An investor says no? That is a data point on your pitch deck. It is not a comment on your character. A competitor attacks your product. That is a signal of a vulnerability in their own business, not a fatal blow to yours. You must become emotionally untouchable. When I talk about the Harvard rejection saving my life, it's because it taught me this lesson early and violently. It stripped away the expectation that the world owed me respect. It forced me to gain respect by doing, not by feeling. So I tell you this as a command, not a piece of advice. Fire your weak emotions now. Don't be controlled by them. Use that energy, that frustration, and channel it into one thing, execution. That focused, cold, unshakable will is the only currency that matters in the end. It is the core difference between the person who complains about their fate and the person who creates their destiny. After facing rejection so many times, you start to see the world with a clarity that the accepted ones can never achieve. You realize that the world is not simply divided by rich and poor, or smart and not smart. It is fundamentally divided into two groups, those who expect permission and those who earn their success through relentless, unyielding action. And the rejection letters, the closed doors, these are the only things that give you the vision to distinguish the two. I was outside. I was never part of the inner circle. The people who rejected me, the Harvard admissions officers, the local business executives, the established venture capitalists, they represented the system. They operate on rules and traditions, and they value conformity above all else. They only say yes to what is predictable. The people who accepted me, who believed in a crazy idea called Alibaba, were the outsiders, the risk takers, the ones who had also been told no. They were the us. This rejection from the establishment gave me an immediate, fierce us versus them clarity. It forced me to build a network only of those who truly believed in earning their place, not inheriting it or being granted it. If you are always seeking acceptance from established institutions, from people who don't understand your ambition, you will be constantly watering down your vision. You will adjust your goals to fit their comfort zone. They will keep you small and safe. This is why I tell people, stop seeking acceptance from people who don't understand your ambition. Their lack of belief is their problem, not yours. When I was starting out, I learned that the opinion of someone who has never built anything is absolutely worthless. Their skepticism is a sign that you are moving in the right direction, away from the herd. This clarity forces you to audit your relationships. Jim Rohn famously said you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If those 5 people are focused on complaining, seeking permission, and talking about yesterday's problems, guess what your average is? Poverty, of mindset, of spirit, and eventually of wallet. You have to be ruthless in building your inner circle. My rejection pushed me toward other dreamers, other people who saw possibilities where the establishment saw roadblocks. We became a tribe of entrepreneurs, willing to suffer together, willing to fail together, but always moving forward. So look closely at your friends, your colleagues, your social circle. Are they accelerating you, or are they keeping you comfortable? If they constantly talk you out of taking the leap, if they celebrate your small successes, but mock your big dreams, they are part of them, regardless of how friendly they are. They are toxic to your ambition. That Harvard rejection taught me to value fierce, honest belief over polite, comforting skepticism. You need to find your tribe of crazy ones. The outsiders, the builders, the entrepreneurs. These are the people who will see the value where the established system cannot. Stop trying to please the gatekeepers. Find the people who want to break down the gates with you. That is how you leverage rejection into an unstoppable force. The path they lay out for you, the one I was desperately trying to get into at Harvard, is a blueprint for comfort, but it is ultimately a cage. They teach you that the key to success is good grades, a prestigious university degree, and then a safe, predictable job with benefits. This traditional system is not designed to produce revolutionary founders or true wealth creators. It is designed ruthlessly to produce compliant, highly functional workers. The system wants you to think in small steps, in incremental improvements, and in the language of management, not the language of creation. The Harvard rejection was the single most painful yet effective wake-up call I ever received, because it exposed this system for what it is, a trap. If I had been accepted, I would have spent my life optimizing someone else's business model. I would have been taught to manage existing assets beautifully, but never how to create something from nothing. True wealth, the kind of wealth that changes industries and moves society, doesn't come from managing processes, it comes from inventing them. And invention requires thinking that is completely outside the established structure. They want you to fear risk. They want you to prioritize security. They want you to believe that stability is the highest virtue. But stability is stagnation. When you look for safety, you automatically limit your potential to the average returns that the safe road offers. True wealth only comes from seeing the world differently, from having a unique perspective, and from daring to bet on that perspective. This is something you can only do when you are completely outside the established way of thinking. You must be willing to be unconventional, to be misunderstood, and even to be ridiculed. I was rejected because I didn't fit their mold, and thank God for that. Because that failure to fit forced me to develop my own operating system. It allowed me to see the massive gaps that the big, slow, established companies were missing. They were all looking up, at the government, at the big institutions. I was forced to look down at the small merchants, the poor entrepreneurs, the people they ignored, and that is where Alibaba was born. We saw the opportunity hidden in the inefficiency, an opportunity that the highly educated, smoothly managed people at the top were blind to. You must escape the linear thinking they teach you in school. Linear thinking gets you from point A to point B. Entrepreneurial thinking gets you from point A to a place that doesn't even have a name yet. It requires a leap of faith, a tolerance for ambiguity, and a profound disrespect for the status quo. The rejection freed me to take that leap. It taught me that seeking comfort is expensive. The cost is your full potential. So, if you feel constrained by the traditional path, celebrate that feeling. It means you are recognizing the cage. Your job now is to use the energy of that rejection to find the key and break free. Remember this, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, but rejection is often the dynamite that blows up the bridge you were supposed to take, forcing you to build your own. People often talk about the great innovators like they had some magic secret, some instant flash of genius. It's a convenient lie because it excuses the rest of us from putting in the monumental work. They'll tell the story of Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb, and it sounds so simple, so inevitable. But the truth, the brutal truth, is the 10,000 attempts that didn't work. Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He was rejected by 10,000 incorrect methods before finding the one that finally worked. This is not a quaint motivational cliche. This is the core truth of all great discovery, and it is the direct result of embracing rejection. You must look at my Harvard rejection, my KFC rejection, and all the rejections I faced when trying to raise money for Alibaba in the exact same light. They were not failures in my ability. They were simply the universe telling me very clearly, this method is incorrect. Try again. Every no you receive, every door slammed in your face by a potential investor or a prestigious school is a critical piece of data. It brings you one step closer to the single yes that changes everything. The mistake most people make is that when they receive a rejection, they take it personally. They internalize the no as a verdict on their self-worth. They mourn the rejection, they stop working, and they waste valuable time on self-pity. This is a catastrophic error. You must separate your ego from the experiment. The rejection is not saying you are bad. It is saying your current approach is flawed. You must immediately analyze the rejection, extract the lesson, adjust your strategy, and move on faster. The speed of your recovery is the most accurate measure of your potential for success. When we were trying to get Alibaba off the ground, we were constantly rejected. Investors said the market was too immature, the technology was too complex. They had 10,000 reasons why it wouldn't work. For every no they gave us, we didn't cry. We sat down that night and treated it like an experiment that yielded negative results. We asked, was the pitch weak? Was the timing wrong? Is the market missing an essential piece? The rejection. It's a free consultation from the market itself. It forced us to refine the business model until it was bulletproof. This is the power of turning rejection into research. Don't mourn the rejection, analyze it, and move on. The difference between a struggling entrepreneur and a successful one is not intelligence or money. It is stamina, the sheer, stubborn will to absorb rejection and keep moving with undiminished conviction. The world only remembers doers, not talkers. And rejection is the single best force for turning talkers into doers. You must view every closed door as confirmation that you are eliminating paths that don't lead to your goal. You are narrowing the field. You are becoming smarter, tougher, and closer to the singular truth that will open the way. Remember Edison. He wasn't lucky. He was just willing to absorb more no's than anyone else. That's the secret. To achieve truly massive, world-changing success, you must be willing to look like an absolute fool to the mediocre majority. This is the simple secret of the crazy man, and it is a lesson that is amplified tenfold by rejection. When you are operating inside the accepted system, you seek validation. When you are kicked out by Harvard, by KFC, by everyone, you gain the freedom to pursue ideas that sound clinically insane to the average person. You no longer need their respect, and that is a profound competitive advantage. When I started Alibaba, people laughed. Literally, they laughed. They said, "Jack, what is this funny name? You're starting an internet company in Hangzhou with no real money, no technology background. This is impossible. This is a crazy dream." They thought I was a joke. I looked ridiculous. My pitch was awkward. My English wasn't perfect. And the concept of e-commerce in China at that time was far-fetched. That ridicule, that total lack of belief from the vast majority was the single most powerful sign that I was on the right path. If your idea is immediately understood and widely accepted, it is by definition not revolutionary. It means someone else has already executed it, or it is too small to truly matter. Revolution requires operating at the edge of the possible, and that edge looks very much like madness to the people standing safely in the middle. The Harvard rejection, the perpetual failure to conform, gave me the necessary psychological insulation to tolerate being called crazy. I didn't have their prestigious degree to uphold, no lofty reputation to protect. I had nothing to lose but the respect of people whose opinions I had already learned were irrelevant to my ambition. This is the power of the outsider. When you are forced onto the perimeter, you are free to pursue the crazy idea without needing the respect of the smart, stable, respectable people who will ultimately end up working for you. They are optimizing the existing world. You are building the next one. They are busy securing their annual bonus. You are building an asset that will last generations. Never be afraid to be the one who looks foolish in the short term. Humiliation is temporary. Revolution is permanent. This is the central mindset shift you must make. Use their ridicule as your motivation. The moment they start laughing, you should smile, because it means you are thinking bigger than their capacity for belief. The person who wants to be accepted and respected will always be managed by others. The person who is willing to be called crazy will always be the one creating the future. The rejection from the establishment is simply the license you are granted to ignore their rules completely. Take that license. Embrace the absurdity of your ambition. The power of saying, I don't care what you think, is the ultimate financial and emotional leverage. It is the secret of the crazy man, and it is the necessary price of truly massive success. I have met many rich people and I have met many poor people. The biggest difference between them is not the balance in their bank account. It is where they locate their self-worth. If your self-worth is dependent on an acceptance letter from a prestigious school, if it relies on a job title that someone else gave you, or if it requires a round of applause from your peers, I will tell you frankly, you are poor. You are spiritually, emotionally, and strategically poor. Even if you wear an expensive suit, you are giving away the most valuable asset you possess, your identity, to external judges. The Harvard rejection and all the rejections that followed were harsh, essential teachers. They taught me that external validation is utterly worthless. It is a paper-thin measure of success that can be taken away by a hiring manager, a downturn in the economy, or a single letter in the mail. My worth could not be tied to what they thought of me. It had to be built internally, on my competence, my commitment to the mission, and my sheer willpower to keep showing up, even when nobody else believed. This recalibration is the core secret of true mental toughness and wealth. Rejection forces you to stop asking, do they approve of me? And start asking, am I executing my plan effectively? You move from a state of seeking approval to a state of generating value. Once you truly internalize that you don't need their permission to start, you become a financially and mentally free person. The moment I stopped caring about whether Harvard accepted me and started caring only about making Alibaba a reality, I became more powerful than any CEO with a fancy degree. Think of it this way. When an external entity, a university, a corporation, a boss, holds the key to your self-worth, they hold the power. They can manipulate you with the promise of status or the threat of removal. But when you build your self-worth on internal metrics, your work ethic, your integrity, your ability to execute under pressure, that power becomes entirely yours. It is portable. It cannot be revoked by a layoff or a rejection letter. This internal power is the true secret of the billionaire mindset. It is the ability to operate at a peak level of performance while remaining indifferent to the surrounding noise of criticism or praise. The criticism doesn't hurt, and the praise doesn't inflate your ego because you know your own value better than any external source ever could. This is the difference between having money and having wealth. Money is a transaction. Wealth is the capacity to create money independent of external permission. The rejection taught me to be relentlessly focused on building that internal capacity. So, check your ego. If it is fragile, you need more rejection, not less. Build your value on your commitment, not your credentials. That is the only foundation that will not break when the storm comes. Everyone wants a map to success, a clean, straight line from their starting point to the destination. They want the prestigious degree, the smooth promotion, the rapid ascent. But I will tell you this, the straight road is the crowded road, and the crowded road leads only to average returns. If you want extraordinary results, you must take the extraordinary route. And that is why the Harvard rejection was so important. It forced me onto the detour. The detour is not a mistake, it is the true path. My detour was a decade filled with failures, rejections, awkward small businesses, and massive uncertainty. It was not the planned success that saved my life, it was the unexpected, painful detour. And it is in these detours that you learn the only skills that truly differentiate a founder from a manager. On the main road, you learn efficiency. On the detour, you learn resilience, resourcefulness, and peripheral vision, the ability to see opportunities that the people on the straight road are too busy looking forward to notice. When I started my first few businesses, everything failed. But every failure, every rejection, taught me something specific about the market, about Chinese culture, about technology adoption, and most importantly, about myself. It was in those messy, unplanned detours that I learned how to manage zero budget, how to motivate a small team with no promise of success, and how to pivot when the whole world says you should quit. These are the skills that made Alibaba possible. No business school can teach you how to survive a cash crunch when the bank has already said no. Only the detour can teach you that. You see, the straight road is paved with the known. The detour is where you discover the unknown. And the greatest opportunities, the wealth that is waiting to be created, always lie hidden in the path others refuse to take. They are too afraid of the ambiguity, too reliant on the map, too worried about what the people on the main road will think of them. But I had already been rejected by the main road. I had nothing to lose by taking the overgrown, risky path. That freedom is what allows you to find massive, uncontested markets. So, stop fighting the obstacles. Stop lamenting the closed doors. Embrace the unexpected route that has been forced upon you by rejection. That detour is your greatest competitive advantage. The messy, winding path is where you acquire the unique, hard-earned wisdom that no one can teach or replicate. The planned success is shallow. The earned success, built on the back of relentless detours, is deep and unshakable. It is the core of your destiny. Go into the unknown and build something the mainstream world couldn't even predict.